Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to ITW Present Vista 2020. Welcome ITW Consulting Private Limited, one of the leading consulting and management companies in India, as our title sponsor for Vista 2020. ITW Consulting has been named among the top 6 sports marketing companies in Asia. ITW specializes in crafting and executing multifaceted brand management solutions and celebrity management across a vast number of areas, sports, entertainment, and media. I would now like to request Amita to play a short video before we start the speaker session.
The 11th hour is upon us. A choice needs to be made. Do we fall or do we stand tall? From the silence around emerges a winning call. And it's getting louder. When you are pushed to the extreme, do you dare to unleash? To emerge on top of your game? Listen close. They are cheering louder. Break the chains of helplessness, because humanity stands tall. And cheer louder than ever. It's time to transform to extraordinary.
Thank you, Namita. Now we have with us today Mr. Vivek Chandra, an alumnus of IIM Calcutta. Mr. Vivek Chandra is the Director and Head of Business for Middle East and Africa region. He's responsible for managing the relationship with cricket boards and brands around the region and delivers a profitable business to the group. Now, without any delay, I would like to hand over to Mr. Chandra.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
IIM Bangalore's Vista has been quite close to my heart. I've been there last couple of times as well. This is the third time. Only difference this time around is that I'm doing this digitally. It used to be a little different doing it in the room out there with people. It was a little more interactive. I used to keep it a complete open session, allowing questions. So today, I'll try to do that digitally, that if anyone has any query, just post it in the chat so that I could read while, the conversation is on, so that I could plug in all the answers. I'll provide an option in the end of good 10 to 15 minutes or maybe even 20, where we could have more of a interactive, conversation where we could pick questions. So today's afternoon, we're going to talk about career in sports industry. This is one such industry, probably apart from the entertainment, where the glamour quotient is quite much if you look from outside. Usually people would have a thought, the moment you think of sports, you think of the biggest name possible. And especially when it's in Indian context, you think about cricket, and then you think about the names which are holier than thou, biggest of the people. And career there, most of the times people feel that there's a glamour to it. Today we'll try and dissect what kind of glamour is there, what kind of work is there. Before that, we would also try and understand how did this become a career option in a country where we kept on hearing, especially the people who grew up in 90s, they kept on hearing kheloge, kudoge, banoge kharab, padhoge, likhoge, banoge nawab. From that to today, where we stand, where there's a legitimate career for many industry, which is multi-billion dollars now. So as a country, we moved from there. So how did we move there, and that whole travel that led to the whole job creation? So we'll talk about that as well. To start with, as I mentioned, India was never a sports-focused country until 2000. And when I say sports-focused country in terms of career, we always had the love of sports. The following for the sports was always there. The reason for that, people keep on, comparing India's sports spend. India people keep on talking about sports set up in US, and then people UK and all developed market, and then talk about sports in India. Now, if you look at it, it's technically directly linked with economy of the country. Uh, what we were earlier to what we are today with the economy, people have grown up, the whole country has grown up, per capita income has grown up, the spend for the brands has grown up, and that in turn has started being invested in sports. If you look at the whole sports, one story I always share, and it's in public domain where everyone knows about it. 1983, when India's national team won the World Cup, and when they returned back, uh, the country didn't have money to give them. There were concerts being done. Lata Mangeshkar did a concert to get some money to pay to those sports stars. And remember, in 1983, we were not winning much. We were not winning in probably most of the phase of the life. So it was the first time when we came up and told the world that, guess what, there's one sport, there's one thing in which India is world champion. So the country which had a very low GDP, which had a low economy, the growth rate was around 4% during that time. From that time, it was the first thing that we could flash to the world and say, hey, guess what, we stand there. But the sadness of the story was that we didn't have money to appreciate our stars who came back and gave to India one positive news. Otherwise, in the global setup, you won't hear many good things about India. We were still the land of snake charmers in eyes of many Westerners. So it all started probably from there, where people started seeing an option of sports in the country which could make you famous. If you look at all the 15 people who went to play, World Cup in 1983, today most of us could name 10 of them, 12 of them, 13 of them, many a times, all became stars in their own capacity and beyond. So from there, the sport started picking up to a level when in 2003, we lost the World Cup. We did not win the World Cup. We lost the World Cup. And yes, everyone got 1 crore rupees each. They got a house which was worth more than 1 crore by Sahara in Lonavala. So we had started seeing the change. But if you look at the whole economy change, until 2000, India's economy was about 450 billion. Today we are at 2.7, 2.8 trillion altogether. Now this whole growth is where the growth of sports has happened in India. And that's where we have started to look at an option where the jobs could be created. Now, if we look at the Indian sports setup, like when was the first job for sports in India apart from players? And if you throw this question to anyone, what's the kind of job in sports? And then the first thing that would come to your mind happens to be a player. Something better it goes, and like you could be a commentator. Something more probably, if you could think that you could be an anchor. Or a host, and that's the kind of work that you think of it. But it's far, far, far beyond that. Even if you have an interest in broadcast, the thing that you see on TV, what you'll see today, 1 hour from now in IPL, there would be more than 30 cameramen ensuring there would be more than 60 people crew apart from that cameraman, ensuring the content to be ready and to be placed across the globe altogether. So sports is not just about player; it's about far more things. So if you look at the first organized sports investment happening in Indian setup by foreigners or by anyone who seriously wanted to look at sports, was Star Sports in 1990, 1991. It used to be called Prime Sports at that point in time. It was an investment from outside. It was based out of Hong Kong. And then they further organized themselves in 1996, where they stopped competing towards with ESPN, and they created ESPN Star Sports. That was 1996. And that was the era, the prime era, and most of the sports story of India. As much as we we keep on dissing cricket, we keep on saying that where's the scope of other sports, where's the scope of Olympic sports. But truth is, everything that has happened to sports has probably origination out of cricket, because that was the mass sport that people was following mid-90s. So this was the golden era for sports, where there was one administrator in sports from India, Jagmohan Dalmia, who wanted to create a whole set of commerce for cricket in India, and wanted the whole world to look at India as the major focus when it comes to cricket. And this effort, while it got quite famous in 1996, because We hosted the World Cup. This was not 87. This was still open era. The TV had opened up. There were multiple private channels. People were talking. There were news channels. So there were all the things, and the media had, gotten better. So we talked a lot about Jagmohan Dalmia in 1996. But Jagmohan Dalmia's real story is 1985, 86, where he convinced, along with the PCB's the then chairman, to ICC to host the World Cup in India. In 1987, we hosted the World Cup in India. It was the first World Cup with 50 overs. It was not easy. The English people, they wanted to play the ODI with 60 overs cricket, though there were Carrie Packer making things happen in Australia for 50 overs. But the World Cup was about 60 overs. Now, why did the 50 over thing happen? The funny part is, in India, the sunset happens early. In England, in summer, the sunset goes, the sun is up there until 8:39, where you could literally have a decent visibility to play cricket. But in India, sun were setting at 5:30, 6:30. So that's where we got a 50 over cricket introduced to ODI. But to make that happen, to take out World Cup from England's clout altogether, was the man in 86, 87 itself. And then further, he got things organized for the cricket into 1996. So that was the era when, we started a first job being created in sports. Probably I would give it to Star Sports, discounting the Doordarshan old era. The second thing that happened was 1996, when many of you would remember India used to play Pakistan in Canada, Sahara Cup, fun time, fun games. We used to wake up to watch those matches. There was a private investment to it. It was a three-party setup where India, Pakistan, and IIMG came together to create that tournament altogether. So that's where Indian cricket started, to taste money. And from that day till today, there are probably two big landmarks. One happens to be 2007, and that's IPL. If you look at IPL, what it did was it married cricket and Bollywood, which we all know. But what it further did was to bring cricket every day evening for 2 months at a prime time, 8 p.m. Cricket was still there was evening matches. The ODI would start at 2:30, 3 p.m. in India. T20 was still catching up. Suddenly, there was this format of sports T20, which BCCI probably, was not so keen to push it until 2007. But when they got into it, they found this 3.5 hours of entertainment starting at 8 p.m. most prime time that, people tune on the TV. And that tuning on of the TV for the faster form of cricket changed the whole, economics of sports in the country. If you look at IPL's only from the sponsorship value, the first year of IPL, when DLF got into the setup, they paid 40 crores. In 2019, when Vivo spent money, it was 440 crores. So that was the growth. That was the 11 times of growth in 11 or 12 years altogether. And that's the kind of the growth the Indian setup started to see. Now, the question is, if there is a money, would there be job? Answer is yes. That's quite obvious that when you start seeing money flowing in a particular sector, which was little unorganized initially, but thanks to IPL, we started seeing, and that's where I say that how cricket ended up holding hands for multiple other sports. Kabaddi, we all forgot. Probably my generation, which went to school, was the last generation which saw Kabaddi being played in school. Kabaddi for guys, Kho-Kho for girls. It didn't happen. Like in post 2000, I guess most of the school, they took off the curriculum. But then, Star brought in the whole Kabaddi League. And this was a contact sport, further more fast with the new rules altogether. And there you go, people started switching on the TV. So because of one particular league having worked for cricket, things started moving. It went to Kabaddi, it went to earlier to football. There was a hockey league, there was a badminton league, we even had a boxing league. So there you go, each time you're having a league, you have multiple people being employed to deliver that. You have multiple people employed in all forms of employment that you could imagine. It's probably the accountant is sorting out the accounts of a particular league. There's a sales guy trying to sell the sponsorship of it. There's a cameraman who's trying to broadcast to it. There's a director who is trying to direct all of the setup. There's a producer. There is a up, sticking banners. So the guy who prints those banners. There's a LED guy. You could think of the kind of job that you would want to do, and each of these leagues would have different and lot amount of money being spent on those particular areas, and there are people delivering it back to them. So in that time, since 2007, things started getting better, and from that to today, if you look at the whole Indian spend on sports altogether, last year 2019, early 20, we had crossed 9,000 crores of spend in sports in the country, and out of that, the IPL. But beyond that, there was still a scope of another 4,000 crore spends on cricket TV, spends on football, spends on kabaddi, spends on badminton across. So the point being, today we have reached to a point where there's a lot of money in the whole setup for sports altogether. The question is, how much is it? Are we seeing the whole peak? The good news is, as many number of jobs that has been created today, if we just do a comparison, and now is the time when I would want to do a comparison with the US, which initially I said that, the economy was never supportive enough to have such comparison. But if you just simply look at the economy of US today, it's close to 10.5 to 11 trillion. India is about 2.7, 2.8 trillion altogether. So we are about 5 times smaller. But if you look at the sports spend, we are at 1 billion. Even just, and another part of it is that their population is literally far, far, far more lower than us. Now, so we are at 3 times their population. Economy might be at 5 times lower. Simple maths, we could grow 5 times just if you look at the economy, but you have another 3 times for the population part as well. But it probably doesn't work that way. But the point is, there's a lot of scope out there. If you look in the developed setup, even the core school sports, the university sports, the college sports, they have a complete infrastructure of their own. They have a complete economy of their own, and those numbers are far, far beyond that we get in any sports, even in India. So if India, you look at college sports, there's nothing organized. Probably last time I hear someone talking about university sports is in cricket, and that's only when you try to hear or listen to people who played cricket in early 80s and 90s. Probably that was the last time when the university cricket was famous. All of these guys that you could think of coming to Indian cricket, all of them, they had played university. The fun part is, in early 90s, most of the team, or late 80s and early 90s, most of the team players used to be graduate. Then came a man, Sachin Tendulkar. उसको पढ़ाई लिखाई से कुछ लेना देना नहीं था, उसको क्रिकेट खेलना था. And then when that guy started playing cricket, he created a space for himself, and the whole world started going, saying they're putting their kids in sports and saying इसको Sachin Tendulkar बना दो. Now the point is, from that till today, आज के डेट में ग्रेजुएट ढूंढना मुश्किल है. अश्विन एक इंजीनियर है, पता नहीं और कितने ग्रेजुएट्स हैं या हैं भी नहीं उस पूरे टीम में या नहीं. बट पॉइंट इन सब में ये हुआ कि जो बड़ी अच्छी चीज थी, एंड द थिंग वाज द होल यूनिवर्सिटी, द स्पोर्ट्स, द कॉलेज लेवल ऑफ sports that existed, which had acceptance in the whole setup. The selectors would go and pick the players from there. It has ended. Now, good thing that it ended then. Great thing that it's a huge opportunity right now, and probably very soon someone else would be picking to it. What I wanted to summarize on all of it is, there is a proper money in sports now in India. There is a lot of scope of growth in sports in India. And that whole growth, which started channelizing around 2005 onwards, saw a huge spike, courtesy IPL. From there till today, with the whole economy, literally growing up, we would see a sports industry which would be probably at least 2 times of it, now what it is, in less than 3 to 4 years, with the kind of growth that sports has been seeing year on year. And that only means that, number of resources, number of people who is trying to work in industry will keep on increasing. So that's whole side of why, there is this career in sports, why there is a data that proves that, there is enough now for people to come and create a whole career in sports altogether. Now, coming to the whole side of it, there's always a question. Kya karna hai? How to get into it? Where and how do we start looking at it? Guys, just give me 1 minute. I'll hold this. Sorry, guys. I didn't go back to check my notes. Trust me, it was just, I realized that I had not switched on the power. I hope I'm audible now. I was muted is what I felt.
So you're audible.
Perfect. Yep. So one of the most basic question is, how do I create a space or scope for myself in the sports industry? The question is multifold. It depends on where you are starting. It depends on the kind of job profile you are looking for. It depends on kind of work that you are looking into. Certain management side of the aspect, probably any MBA, any business graduate, anyone with a basic understanding.
Sir, you're on mute. We're not able to hear you. Yeah, it's fine.
As long as you guys are not turning me mute again.
No, sir.
Perfect. So the point is, where do you start, is I was saying, and there's a multiple start points for many, and it depends on absolutely what kind of job you're looking at. Now, the certain job, absolutely, probably, from the background that you come from, if you are an MBA, if you're a graduate, if you're a business graduate, if you have a management skills, if you have experience which is in and around management, depending on various kind of work that you have done, as long as you're good in that, you have a space in sports already. You don't have to get into directly getting into a course anywhere else. Most part of the work, if you have, say, sales skills, this is any service that is being sold to the world. As long as you know the difference between product selling and service selling, which Mr. Kotler has taught all of us, and if not Mr. Kotler, then few different kind of professors would have taught all of us already. So the point is, as long as you understand those two differences, you could go ahead and sell. Selling, again, it's a very, it's a science in itself. It's as organized a setup required to sell if you're trying to sell sports. Probably all 4 P's of marketing with a little twist, 1 towards service, 2 towards the whole sports side of it is required. And there you go, you could do the job. Same holds true for the marketing part as well. Same holds true for the finance part as well. End of the day, same financial statement उठाना है, फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. मतलब probably you'll have to try and understand a bit on how you are accounting for what, but then that's about it. So that there are multiple domains in which absolutely, if you have a right opportunity coming your way, sports, you could jump as of today without having a direct experience in sports altogether. And such has been what you call modern day employment, isn't it? Like, no one knew how to sell Facebook or products of Facebook. Suddenly people were selling, Facebook. The point is, उस दिन जब शुरू किया हुआ किसने, no one came up with कि we need 5 years of experience, right? No one had any. Genuinely, no one had. Like, each of these guys, when they created a new kind of business, they brought in people from other industry. They brought in people for closer industry to what they have been doing. And the point is, sports has always been structured till today, like it or not. The discarded ones were in sports. Nothing's are changing. It's no more in the space of the discarded ones. Now it's a space where people, look for that job. Now is the time where people actually aspire for this job. Now is the time where people think, guess what? Let's do something in sports altogether. So one part is, yes, wherever you are, from there you could jump into this bandwagon, absolutely, as long as you know the base of things that you want to enter to. The second side of it is, yes, it has a complete specialized programs globally. In fact, starting last year or last to last year, even Ivy League now has the official sports marketing program in Columbia University. There were, what you call, institutes like ASTS, which was based out of Switzerland. Then there was KEDGE, which was based out of France, if I'm not wrong. Johannesburg University, or rather Cape Town University in South Africa. There were a few good programs globally already, but now even Ivy League has gotten into it. Harvard is looking to launch a sports program very soon. They're looking to bring in a whole 3 credit course for their MBA degree if people choose to get into it there before they get into the specialized program. The point is that enough programs in globally where you could look into it, get into it, spend your second MBA or spend time as your second MBA or do that as your first management degree, and you could look at jumping into sports altogether. As of today, I would tell you, in a country like India where the growth for sports is predicted on the highest part anywhere in the world, this is the place to be. This is the sector to be. This is a place where there is enough and a more for everyone. There is probably not enough resources who are specialized with a degree in sports to get into this setup, and that's where people like us who did an MBA jumped into sports. IT करता था, पता नहीं क्यों sports में आ गया. But the point is, हम जैसों को कोई किसी दिन sideline करेगा. There will be people who will be coming from the specialized degree. And today we lack those people. So there are enough, even in India, there are at least 10 or 12 decent sports management program now in the country altogether, where the graduates, they're getting their jobs. Now, the question is, again, is there a defined structure of looking at how's the job in this part of the world? How is it out here? I'll tell you, the whole sports as a organized sector always in India was probably very limited to the broadcasting side of it, to the playing side of it, to the coaching side of it, and to the entertainment side of it, probably, post 2000, the satellite TV era, when there were hosts doing it, when there were suddenly faces required to, talk about cricket. We all remember Shanti serial से निकल के कोई sports की सबसे बड़ी anchor बन गई थी इंडिया में. And yes, when we all started bringing that, probably people still thought that was the career altogether. Now, if you look at it, people aspire not just to be a cricketer or a footballer or a hockey player. The good thing is all of us, when we have grown up with some aspiration of sports in an Indian setup, or 80% of the kids growing up has some aspiration side of the sport. From there, this, it gives you one good option in a very organized way to return back to your passion. Probably, when you wake up every morning, you don't have to worry about, what you're doing. I'll give you an example. Today, at least 5 members of my team would right now, it's 2 o'clock here, so the match would have just started, 3:30 in India, would be in Dubai Cricket Stadium. Now they're doing their job, right? It's an IPL where people are not allowed to get inside the stadium. It's an absolute bio bubble. There's only people who are needed there for work could be there. And there are 5 of them probably sweating because of Dubai's heat and complaining about how धूप में मैं काला पड़ रहा हूँ. But that's one job that I know right now there would be millions who would love to do that. Now those guys, when they return back in the evening, next day when they have to do that, when there's a Virat Kohli walking next to them, it's usual. It's actually a day job for, that guy where he is paid every month a salary for it. But that's the aspiration for many. That's the dream for many. We keep on saying, passion के नाम पे इंडिया में हम आधे टाइम पे स्टार्टअप खोलने की बात कर लेते हैं. Passion के नाम पे हम इंडिया में photography, after thanks to 3 idiots, हम photography करना शुरू कर देते हैं. 3 साल के engineering के बाद we choose to leave engineering. We become a photographer. But trust me on this, sports pays you enough money, keeps you close to the passion, and brings you to the whole setup in a manner where usually no other thing. Probably only thing else that I come across is entertainment, Bollywood maybe, become a cameraman, become a director, become an assistant director, and then you go close to stars. Here, there's not just one cameraman, there are 40 of them. Here, there are at least 20 agencies in the country today, which is working entirely for sport. There's the Group M's of the world, the biggest agencies, they have a complete sports line of its own. Coming to ITW and the kind of job that we have created, it was an organization that started with 4 people who were very, very passionate about sports. From picking the marketing rights in probably one corner of the stadium in 2010 to today, 2020, where ITW manages almost 80% of any cricket being played anywhere in the world, has a close association and, probably more than 20% of now the whole business is contributed of just sports part. I'm still not talking entertainment, I'm still not talking media, but just of the sports, more than 20% being contributed by other sports globally. From a 4 people setup to today a 200 plus people setup, all in a very organized manner, doing their day job, not waking up randomly and then finding what to do, but with a defined KRA, with a defined purpose to achieve. That's probably, when India was growing, probably when sports was growing, we were one of the few in the country which we actually followed the trajectory which the sports industry, the economy of the country kept on seeing. Economy 2000 to 2020, it would have grown, 4 times, 5 times. We grew in last 10 years, probably 30 times, 40 times. If you take a benchmark of one particular year, 2012 or 2013, whenever you look at where we started. So there is example now around you. It was tough earlier, but I could give you, in writing in whichever bigger cities you are in the country. If you look around you, you'll find people who literally, is dependent on sports or in and around sports, at least in the top 5 cities in the country, where you will know or you will start knowing. If LinkedIn, it could be any benchmark. I could guarantee you, most of you, there would be at least 4 to 5 now sports professionals who would be in your second, level, if not on the first level for sure. So the point is, there is now a quite prevalent setup of of this whole industry. One whole thing that India has to see in particular, when I said India would grow, why and how India would grow, is the whole investment in the infrastructure that is being done by the government. It's the Olympic sports is set to, or has been increasing, and it keeps on each year adding up number of players. They have kept on adding the grants around it, and each time you start getting one star player. India has a sport in a very simple manner. You get one star player or a one team in a sport, and you see that sports becoming famous. As much as Kapil Dev's team for Sachin and then the modern day Dhoni and Virat. To badminton, it was Deepika Padukone's dad back in 1980. Then again, the whole new setup of Saina Nehwal and PV Sandhu. If you look at tennis, it was Leander Pace, Ramakrishnan prior to him, and then Sania Mirza. Mahesh Bhupti in between, and couple of more. But the moment you start having stars, the moment when these stars go out in international setup, and they flash and the Indian flag, from there you start seeing a whole setup being increasing around it. So badminton became a thing in the country. Hyderabad, probably every third house a kid plays badminton. They play badminton to a level that at least in every 10th house you would find one who is going to a coaching institute to learn, or the training institute to learn badminton altogether. So that's where the sports, it has reached to now the second tier cities. It's set to reach the third tier cities. The whole population, which was always the problem of our country last 10 years, has never been a country that has become a market. The volume of the people earlier was literally, there were ads all over national television telling you how not to have more than 2 kids and beyond. No one heard those ads in the last 15 years, because suddenly that helped us create a whole market which is biggest for the most of the world altogether. We are as big as European Union on our own as one country. So that's going to reflect in cricket, that's going to reflect in sports, that's going to reflect in multi-sports. India would start seeing the way the growth has been in multiple other sports, that at least 10 different format of leagues are going to survive in the country. You will have college level sports that would be picked up. The Olympic level sports would keep on growing. So that's where Indian sports setup would be. That's where most of the organized jobs would start being there. To summarize, it's a place to be. It's a place where the future is. It's a place where keep on growing. It's a place will probably very soon start matching the numbers that the B school sees, if not on day zero, but probably from the next day onwards. Sports would be the highest or one of the top recruiters in coming future. That's from my side, guys. We have 22 minutes. Let's see whatever question you guys have. I would have preferred doing this for half an hour. I suddenly didn't realize that I have exceeded it by 8 minutes.
No, sir. I think it was really interesting to hear you. And you have really interesting facts to put on. So we have got like a few more questions as well. So there's a question by Arka Provodas. He said that IPL, ISL, these are all seasonal events. So if a professional wants a perennial job security in the sports industry, now what are the companies one should target and how to land a job in these companies?
Could you repeat? I heard it was a seasonal part, IPL and ISL. Could you repeat?
Yeah, sure. So he says that IPL, ISL, these are all seasonal events. So if a professional wants a perennial job security in the sports industry, then what are the companies, one can target and how to land a job in these companies?
Fair enough. So one of the company, is us. We are a 12 months, 365 days operating. And by that I mean 10 दिन की छुट्टी भी नहीं मिलती. But see, the multiple sports organization in the country right now is a complete 12-month story. It's not a seasonal part. While the sports is being played for a shorter 3-month period when it comes to ISL or 2-month period when it comes to IPL. But the companies that are working behind it, you look at IMG, you look at ITW, there are at least 5 or 10 more names. I don't know, those are the names I'm allowed to take here or not. But at least I could tell you, write me separately and I could reply on an email. But at least there are 10 companies in India as of today, which operates very strongly across the year, focusing only on sports and nothing beyond. Forget those 10 companies. You need to also realize all these, ISL team owners, all these or ISL structure that manages each individual team, they're also year-long, organizations. They're scouting for their players at a certain point in time. There's a lot of ops role out there. They're scouting for sponsorship across, the whole of the year. So when you see those random numbers being thrown to you, in IPL 440 crore रुपए Vivo ने दे दिया, वो एक दिन नहीं होता कि suddenly they don't wake up. There's a lot of effort being put in. The sales cycle, in fact, in cricket is not easy. It's a high ticket sales cycle. It doesn't. You don't pick up call and you say आपको sponsor बनना है, and you don't keep it and the guy is like हाँ बनना है मुझे. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of data being put. A pitch is as good as taking a big account from a marketing agency side, if any one of you have worked out there. So it's that big. It takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of, sports is not just about this seasonal thing. And even if it's seasonal, I'll tell you at least 5 organizations that works across all of them. So when the IPL ends, there's an ISL to start for multiple organizations out there. And then there would be a badminton, then there would be a kabaddi. So it's a year-long thing. Sports is not just about one, and many organizations that are operating, they're operating pan sports, and it's for a whole year long. If you want in particular, probably share my email address to them. I could answer to all of them, the organizations that they could look to join or target.
Thank you, sir. I think that was really an insightful answer. Now we have a second question from Sandeep Boda. He, asked that suppose I'm interested in entering the sports industry as a manager, would it be preferred to pursue a degree in generalized MBA or an MBA with specialization in sports management?
Well, the question was very specific. The point being manager was as, open as it was. So what manager you want to become is a question. Are you looking at targeting becoming a manager of a team which manages the players, their schedule, their whole tour? Or are you talking about getting into a business function in sports and trying to become a manager? Probably that clarity would have helped me answer this question more specifically. I'll try and answer both sides of it. If you're looking at becoming a team manager, a bit of having played sports in past comes little handy. Otherwise, most of the organization that works, closely with these sports federations, those are the places where you need to target to reach there. To have something like that, it would be preferred that today if you have a degree or you have played sports yourself. Now coming to the business function side of it, go to either of the two. Choose either of the two. If you are going for a generalized MBA, probably whatever MBA you are doing right now, in India's setup. Like whatever MBA you are doing, as long as it's generalized MBA, you will find a space and a scope for your CV to be accommodated. If you have passion to work, there would be people who would be helping you out. And if you have a sports degree, trust me, that would come a little more, in terms of how you're going to operate out there. Job scene mein thoda similar kahani hai as of today, but then how you're going to operate out there, it might come little better for you. Your understanding of the whole sport itself would be a little better as compared to coming from a generalized MBA. But as of today, it's not the biggest, bottleneck in the industry to get in. Both of the sides have probably equal entry altogether. And just to give you guys, perspective, even now ICC is led by a complete professional. The guy came from a Star Sports background or ESPN background, went on to do job in Singtel. The person who heads ICC as of today, multiple people out there, they have all their functional backgrounds and they have come back. So the Apex organization, same story if you look at FIFA as well. FIFA has a habit of hiring people from, couple of institutes. They hire heavily from AISTS in Switzerland. They now are hiring, they have gotten in Andre Connect with Columbia University. So is the story with La Liga. So is the story with English Premier League. They have a proper cycle. They have an internship option. It's as organized as ever. If you're looking for a degree in sports, Boda, then please look at not just India, but look beyond. They need professionals across the globe, and there is a lot that you could do. So if you're going for a direct course, look at a global course and look at targeting or setups across the globe rather than just India.
Thank you, sir. I think even ambiguous question you handled it pretty well, answering both the parts. Thank you for that. I think we have some more questions coming up. So this is a question from Muruga Prabhu that, can you share a crisis situation in IPL that your company managed?
यार मेरा job interview ले रहे हो तुम लोग. Are you giving me a job?
No, I think they want to take some learnings from you.
Okay. So, I would not, I would not mark one particular, sports event, because that's disclosing a lot. There's a lot of NDAs and there's a lot of contractual obligation that doesn't allow you to talk multiple things. Having said that, there are many that I could, recollect and call where you could look at an option where you don't know if there would be a match tomorrow or not. And those are the times, not just, and if cricket is still something where things have gotten a lot more organized. But there are times when you don't know that, if the equipment's required for the game, and it's not just players playing, by the way. No one gives anything. So imagine sports when it was being played, I'll give you an example, was about IPL crisis, general wala hi baat karta hu. Let's look at the whole, I'll come to a specific one from ITW's perspective. I'll give you how crisis management happens in sports in particular. So today, if you look at it, IPL doesn't have a single audience in the ground, absolutely zero audience altogether. Many times when you go to a brand, they're like, why do I put a logo in the, the whole setup? Because there's no people in the audience, or people are not coming in the ground at all. Then the idea comes in that it's all about television. It's about people consuming. When all of you guys, you keep seeing Unacademy cracking sixes, Cred ka power pair आके वहाँ TV पे आता है, Dream 11 के लोग बैठे हुए आ रहे होते हैं. The point is, if you look at this whole setup in Corona time, people are like, why and how would we be having IPL at all? And the answer was simple. The economy of sports today, of a mass sport anywhere in the world, is not driven by people coming to the ground. So they were like, okay, we don't need people in the ground at all. It's just not adding to my revenue. Let's take an example. 54 matches, average, 3 crore revenue coming from tickets, total of 150 crores. You know how much Star pays to own the rights to broadcast and show us that cricket in India and globally? 3,300 crores. That's the Star's number. I'm still not talking about a title sponsors number, the other sponsors number. That's just one side of the revenue. So if you look at it, it comes a very minuscule, smaller number. Now to think about that, someone thought over it and they were like, guess what? This whole ticket size is not big enough to jeopardize the whole situation altogether. It might be Ganguly, it might be Desha, it might be Himang, who is the CEO. It's someone, or maybe the whole group put together. They sat down and they said, guess what? This revenue is not making a difference. Let's hold a IPL. People want it. There's the consumption. There's the whole numbers associated with for BCCI to lose that kind of number if they didn't have a whole sports IPL altogether, they would have lost close to 4,000 crore rupees. So they said, guess what? We don't need people. Now, this is one of the crisis management. The crisis management leads right from the things that you see on TV. There's not much that you would see, but there would be days that you won't realize. There would be the whole lower third that you see, graphics, गायब हो जाता है, score नहीं आ रहा होता है. Now someone somewhere is sitting at the graphics guy trying to manage it. There's a larger crisis altogether. Sometimes a whole tournament is, probably you can't host it. I'll not name the country. I'll not name the organization, but all I could see, they were not able to play sports in their country. And then they had to look for an option outside. They had to look for an option where there had to be some commerce partnered and, to create a commerce for them, for their own sports not being played in their own country, played in a third country. And then someone has to sit and say, guess what? You need a time zone, which has to be, giving a right kind of time for the cricket to be, or for their football, or for their hockey, or their basketball to be shown on their TV. So you choose for a country which has the right time zone as you. And then, you create that commerce around it, that why still there should be money being put to it when the sports is not happening. So there's a lot, even from the smallest thing of probably the paint not being there, or I'll give you an example. One of the biggest cricketing event that happened in last 2.5 years, where there was a last ball finish in final for India. In that particular tournament, on their first day, at the start of match, 2 hours prior, they realized that the wicket, today you see it's a zinger wicket. There's a light the moment the bails are, broken. Suddenly everyone realized that this bail jal hi nahi raha hai. And the guy who was to come there to, fix that, he ended up missing his flight because there was a fear of emergency being declared in the country where it was being hosted. Now from that to probably do a Zoom call sitting in the cricket ground at the, for this to work. So there's a lot, there's endless of it. ITW, trust me, does all of it to ensure that what you consume the cricket on TV, you don't get to realize it. But it's not a, rosy picture out there. It's not a rosy world out there. People struggle, they sweat, they stay awake all night to ensure that, next time when you see a match happening, especially at the start of tournament, there's a lot that you go through.
Thank you. So I think, we just realized there could be 1 or 2 crises, but we just realized it's a lot of effort that gets into to consume the kind of cricket we see on television. There's a question from Abhay Saxena. He's asking that please guide us on how to get your sports related startups to grow initially, and what can an early stage sports startup expect from ITW government? There are many angels and VCs for other sectors, but not for sports. So he wanted some guidance on this.
Is he active? Could you ask him what kind of sports startup is he looking for? Again, because my problem is I'm getting such a wide question to answer. Maybe a very specific answer he might not get at the end of it. So if he could repeat the question, we could park it. I'll take this question as the last question before we leave. But ask him to rephrase the question and what kind of startup is he looking at?
Sure, sir. So sir, there's a question which says that, from Shivam Bhola, which says that esports, which has grown so much in West, and I wanted to ask how can this grow in India and the scope and its scope in India as well.
Perfect. So esports, that's one point which actually is on my note. I did not touch it. I missed it out, but yeah. So esports has been growing and growing drastically. Thanks to pandemic, one of the best thing happened to any industry. While the sports industry died, trust me, for 6 months there was no sports anywhere. This was the first industry to be shut. This was the last industry to open up. Everything was allowed to open up before this, before sports. But esports picked up, and esports picked up as a, in a manner that it was never there. I don't know how many of you noticed, Australia was set to play New Zealand before the lockdown, or they were playing the tournament. In the mid of the tournament, that tournament was, postponed or halted in between because of Corona. Now, cricket esport was not there something. So the problem in esport was there was a young generation. People were playing the Dotas of the world. People were playing, multiple digital games, which was very much specific to a certain kind of people. But one big parallel that was being done, and only other that was FIFA. FIFA as a game is hugely popular. People play it across all platforms. But beyond that, there was less of a mass sport which had that kind of following. So Cricket Australia, what they did was the last T20 match that was to be aired, on the day that it was to be aired, they ended up hosting a digital game where one player each were playing that whole match. They had a proper commentary to it as if it was a real live match. So it was a commentary being created for that whole match altogether. Now, that was an example of how even the non-traditional esports was being created towards esports. Before PUBG was banned in India, Sprite was having a huge tournament in India where the whole of the country was coming together and playing the game. The whole spend in esports now has gone cross 1 billion in last couple of years altogether, where these numbers were usually not that high. Dota's number of the winners of the year-end tournament, you would be surprised, to look at the numbers that are being paid. Now in India, if you look at it, good thing, our mobile penetration, our laptops, or rather the machines on which you were playing those esports was always a challenge, but it has gotten far, far better in last at least 5-7 years. And probably we were needed for one spike or one particular event in the world that would have helped us jump onto it, in a big manner. For many other places, I guess, you need a sporting event or a winner or a champion. For esports, it was pandemic. And trust me, when I say this, that next couple of years would be big in esports in the country. And this would grow at least multiple fold or 2 to 3 times more than the other sports growth that India would be seeing. Space for multiple, companies and the professionals to get into it, right from the technical side to ensure even a match that is being hosted. I'm sure the example of esports here would be, right now I'm left with 177 participants. At least 120 of you played a multiplayer game, if not anything, Ludo during the lockdown. That was a fad in whole of the country. Now that's esports, trust me or not, that's a digital gaming altogether. So finally, India saw where people were coming together to play. There's a whole lot of young, youth who plays this game any which ways. And now you have even the mass sports, being dragged to it. So next 2 years, esports in India is set to be growing. It's $1 billion as of today. The esports globally, it will just go multifold.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I think there's one more question. Maybe this will be the last question that we take for the session. Okay, so I think there's a question from Pratik Swain, which asks that, you have talked about a lot of trends and other things that have changed in the sports industry in the last few years, but can you name like 2 to 3 major trends that you expect in the upcoming, 5 to 10 years in the sports industry?
One is esports itself. The acceptance of the esports would increase, in a big manner altogether. Two, the way the sport is being looked at, the way the digital side of, so the consumption of sports was always very dependent on a traditional medium of consuming the sports altogether. Now the digital penetration has been there, but trust me, in next 5 or 7 years, what you would see is the whole traditional medium of sports consumption would start letting go of their percentage share towards the digital medium altogether. Hotstar being an example, they have been growing each year for each of their sporting events globally, whatever star sports has the rights. So that's the second thing that you would see apart from esports is the digital side of it. Suddenly the numbers that you see, it's a little more technical, but the money that is being spent to acquire the rights for TV, that will start decreasing. The whole, money which is spent on the digital side will start increasing. you will also see the Indian content industry in sports is very, very limited. That's another side of the, part of the sport that you'll see that will increase in next 5-7 years drastically. But there would be a lot more content being created on a day-to-day basis. Sports, as someone said, IPL is seasonal, ISL is seasonal. It's truth that even if you look at the whole number of days that India cricket plays or the Indian, team cricket plays globally, there's still a lot of scope. There's still a lot of, space for consumption or the content where people still they don't have it. If you look at the Western world, and if you look at surprisingly, even in our neighborhood, there's a lot of shows being created dedicated to sports and consumed, on high basis on even the mass platforms like YouTube. So you will see that also becoming quite a thing in next few years. One last thing is India's whole sports consumption outside the sport that India play or outside the sport that is played outside India. You'll see a huge growth even in that. Even for the market, they have started to realize that there is a lot of TV being turned on for the footballs globally, even for cricket being played globally. Indian sports fans are such that if you are literally, and I keep on giving the example, if you're driving on the road and on left side someone is playing in a park, cricket game, it's a tendency to literally hold on for one ball being bowled and someone hitting that. आपको कोई लेना नहीं है कौन खेल रहा है, कौन क्या कर रहा है, कौन जीत रहा है, कौन हार रहा है, and yet you are consuming that. So that passion now with the ease of availability will further go on, and the fourth thing that I see or fifth thing that I see is the consumption of sport in country, which is for the sports playing outside India, for the sports which is non-traditional sports getting in India, that would also increase.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Last thing on the question that, I'll take that 1 minute, which I skipped. I skipped because it was not very specific on what sports startup he was looking forward to. Whosoever asked that question, trust me, there's a lot that, even the government is doing right now. If you're not trying to work in cricket, at least any other sports, and there's enough government funds being provided. Anything else, if you're trying to set up a startup and it is to any part, if it's about, managing the digital content side of it, or managing the sports itself, or managing the sponsorship side of it, or managing, the fantasy side of it. Fantasy is a big thing. Another point where, if I would have gotten into it, there's a huge job creation that side as well happening in the country. I did not get into it because there was a lot traditional to be talked about. But in any of these that you are trying to enter, please feel free to reach out to ITW, more number of people getting into this whole ecosystem. This ecosystem, anywhere it grows, when everyone grows, it grows when there are more players and partners. If no one, please find my email address and reach out to me. I'll be happy to guide whatever we can, as long as it is not crossing pathway directly with what we do.
Yeah. I would like to thank sir for his time and this insightful session. As a token of appreciation, a contribution has been made in your name to Save Trees, an organization that works on tree plantation in India. Agroforestry saplings have been planted here in your name and has made a difference to the life of a farmer in Karnataka. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Really a sweet gesture. Planting a tree is quite close to my heart. I'm happy you guys are doing something like this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure. Any question anywhere? Garima has my email address. Anyone wanting to reach out, please feel free. Thank you so much. Cheers. Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.